Welcome to the Mysteries of the Paranormal. I'm your host, Allison. Here, I'll talk all about mythology, folklore, and cryptids. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mysteries of the Paranormal. As always, I am your host, Allison, and today we're going to be talking about the Wendigo. So the Wendigo is a mythological creature or evil spirit originating from the folklore of the Great Plains and the Great Lakes natives, as well as some First Nations. It is based in and around the East Coast forest of Canada and the Great Plains. The Wendigo is often said to be a malevolent spirit, sometimes depicted as a creature with human-like characteristics, which possesses human beings. The Wendigo is said to invoke feelings of greed or hunger, the desire to cannibalize other humans, and the urge to commit murder in those that fall under its influence. The Wendigo is described as a giant humanoid with a heart of ice, a foul stench, or sudden unsensible chill that might precede its approach. Many Hollywood film representations often label human or beast hybrids featuring antlers or horns with the Wendigo name, but such animal features do not appear in the original indigenous stories. In modern psychiatry, the Wendigo lends its name to a form of psychosis known as Wendigo psychosis, which is characterized by symptoms such as an intense craving for human flesh and intense fear of becoming a cannibal. This leads to the idea that if somebody who wants to put their survival needs above others and eats human flesh, or is tempted to, can go Wendigo. It's even said that they are possessed by the spirit of the Wendigo, and their hearts and spine encased in ice so thick that you could hear it popping and cracking if you put your ear to their chest. The only cure for this Wendigoism is either to pour hot bear fat down a person's throat to melt the ice, or to even kill him. In some First Nation communities, other symptoms such as greed and destruction of the environment are also thought to be symptoms of Wendigo psychosis. The Wendigo is part of the traditional belief system of a number of Algonquin-speaking peoples, and I'm sorry if I butchered that, I really am. Although descriptions can vary somewhat, common to all these cultures is the view that the Wendigo is a malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being. They are strongly associated with winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation. Its skin, as mentioned before, is pulled tightly to its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin, its complexion, the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a skeleton recently disinterred from the grave. With lips it had were tattered and bloodied. Unclean and suffering from the separation of the flesh, the Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor of decay. Wendigos are often described as giants that are many times larger than human beings, a characteristic absent from myths in other cultures. Whenever a Wendigo ate another person, it would grow in proportion to the meal it had just eaten, so it could actually never be full. Therefore, Wendigos are portrayed as simultaneously gluttonous and extremely thin due to starvation. The Wendigo is seen as an embodiment of greed and excess, never satisfied after killing and consuming one person. They are continuously searching for a new victim. A Wendigo need not lose the human's powers of cognition or speech, and in some deceptions may clearly communicate with its prospective victims or even threaten and taunt them. According to the legends, a Wendigo is created whenever a human resorts to cannibalism to survive. In the past, this occurred more often when Indians and settlers found themselves stranded in the bitter snows and ice of the northern woods. Sometimes stranded for days, survivors might have felt compelled to cannibalism the dead to survive. and other versions of the legend cite that the Wendigo might also possess humans to display extreme greed. Native American versions of the creature spoke of a gigantic spirit over 15 feet tall that had once been human but had been transformed into a creature by magic. Though the descriptions of the creature vary slightly, the Wendigo is generally said to have glowing eyes, long yellow fangs, terrible claws, and overly long tongues. Sometimes they are described as having shallow yellowish skin, and other times they are covered with matted hair. The creature is said to have several skills and powers, including stealth, and is near a perfected hunter. Knows it and uses every inch of its territory and can control the weather through dark magic. There is a story that took place in December of 1897 in Minnesota, which reported that a Native American woman living in the Barrens River Reserve had constructed a certain kind of fever that effects of which caused her to act strangely. Her husband thought she was going to go Wendigo, so he grabbed her by the hair and broke her neck. He was then arrested for murder, but there are also cases of people going Wendigo that are not mistaken diagnoses. The most infamous case is of Swift Runner. It was the winter of 1878 to 1879, and they were out camping, and Swift Runner, who was known and liked in the town, returned from his winter camp without his family, behaving quite strangely. He said that they had died of starvation, even though he looked pretty hell for a man who had survived in the winter, and killed the other 9 members of his family. The Northwest Mountain Police decided to check in on him, and what they found was a camp site filled with human bones, some of them even gnawed. Swift Runner then confessed to what the academic world calls cannibalism. He is said to have had strange dreams that a spirit told him to eat his family, which included his wife, brother, mother, and his 6 children. He had gone Wendigo. It was said to be a harsh winter, but it wasn't an eat your family harsh winter. He admitted that he had killed and ate one of his sons, the last of his family to die, so that there would be no witnesses to his crimes. Swift Runner was hung for the murders in December of 1879. The true motivation for what had happened will never really be fully pursued. But for a few decades in the 20th century, some psychiatrists diagnosed and treated this, as mentioned before, Wendigo psychosis, as a cultural bond syndrome. So there you have it for the Wendigo episode. If you have had stories or know more about this information, I would honestly love to hear about it. I do plan on digging a little bit deeper on this and finding out more and learning more about this, so that way I could have potentially a part 2, as I do with all of my episodes. But if you have an experience, know more about the Wendigo, if you have an experience in any paranormal, cryptids, if you have a mythology, folklore you want to know about, feel free to DM me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Mysteries of the Paranormal. Twitter is Mysteries of Para. You can also email me at mysteriesoftheparanormal@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. I do have a link tree. A lot of them will be in the bio, so feel free to click on that and find me. And until then, see y'all next time. You can find this podcast at The Mysteries of the Paranormal on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Be sure to tune in every week for a brand new episode, wherever you get your podcast, or at roguemedianetwork.com.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.